Welcome everyone to another observability clinic. What is Dynatrace and how to get started? This is really a session for every one of you that is either new to Dynatrace or wants to see really what is new about Dynatrace and how to get started. It's about ingesting, storing, and analyzing and automating based on data. This is the Getting Started with Dynatrace series. It's August 2023. Now I want to highlight this because a lot of things are changing in Dynatrace. We're always innovating. So in case you're seeing some old content, then you may want to see if there's anything new. But it's August 2023. A couple of links on the bottom here that gets you a sign up for the Dynatrace trial if you're not yet on Dynatrace. And the second link here, the DTURLnet Discover, that's basically giving you a link to the Dynatrace Discover tenant. I will come up with these links later on multiple times, so you can actually follow along with me what I'm doing today. All right, let's get started. What will you learn today? What you will learn today is, first of all, what is Dynatrace? Very brief overview for people that are new to Dynatrace. Then I will talk about Discover Dynatrace. We'll have some hands-on tutorials. And then the next thing is I will give you a little bit of guidance on how you can start your own Dynatrace journey, because for the Discover piece, we are going to use a Dynatrace environment that everyone now has access to, where you can discover existing data because we have a tenant that is monitoring an existing application and existing environment. So these are the three things I have for you today. Now, how do you get access to all of this? First of all, let me just send you all of the links as well for those of you that are in the chat. First of all, I see there's it should say dt-url.net/discover. So I'm sorry for that, but for those people that are in the live webinar, dt-url.net/discover, that gets you to the Dynatrace environment that every Dynatrace user that has a Dynatrace SaaS account. So if you're an existing customer or partner, you can get to this. If you're not yet on Dynatrace, if you don't yet have a Dynatrace account, very easy. You can just sign up with that bit.ly dt SaaS trial. And the last thing I've been working on several tutorials, hands-on tutorials, and I put everything on this public Git repository. So these are the three codes that I have here, and what I will do in the meantime as well, as hopefully some of you are getting into the into either signing up or getting into the tenant, I will quickly fix that slide issue that I have here, because nothing worse than actually having a URL that is wrong, right? If you try to access it. Here we go, dt-url.net/discover. This should be then forwarded to the Dynatrace tenant that we have, that we can all use today. If you have questions, if you're watching live, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom. If you're watching this recorded, either leave a comment, whether you watch this on YouTube or on the other channels. Another option would be go to community.dynatrace.com to ask any general questions, or also leverage the built-in product chat, because we have a chat feature where you can chat with my colleagues. All right, so hopefully every one of you has these links now. Sign up for the trial if you don't have a Dynatrace account yet. If you already have a Dynatrace SaaS account, you can go to that Dynatrace tenant. It's called the Dynatrace Discover Dynatrace Sandbox or Playground tenant. And also do me a favor, check out that GitHub repository. It also contains all the links you need, including step-by-step tutorials with screenshots, with instructions, with dashboards, with notebooks. Everything is in there. All right, as you get started, because signing up for a trial may take about 3 or 4 minutes, let me quickly cover what is Dynatrace for those of you that don't know Dynatrace. Dynatrace is really analytics and automation for unified observability and security. If you look at the website, and there's really a great video, if you go on dynatrace.com and explore the platform, that does a much better job than I can ever do in explaining what the platform is. But in a nutshell, the Dynatrace platform is really there to ingest all of your data that you have, from traces, logs, metrics, user behavior, down to the code level. And it provides that platform to solutions that we put on top of Dynatrace. We have everything from infrastructure observability to digital experience also all the way to automations, and you can even build your custom solutions on top of the Dynatrace platform. What's unique about the platform is in Dynatrace, not only do we ingest the data, we are ingesting it to a single data store that we call Grail, where we really optimize the way we store and analyze and make any of your observability data available, whether it's logs, metrics, or traces, or end user behavior, events, security. All is part of that platform. All is stored very efficiently and cost effective, and it's made available to these solutions. Now, there's a couple of core components in that platform that everybody can leverage. It's our Dynatrace Davis AI. It's our automation engine to execute and define workflows. It's our app engine, how we at Dynatrace, also our partners and even users can then build apps on top of Dynatrace. All right, so this is everything that you need to know about the platform. Now, from my perspective, some secret sauces to give you a different view. I've been with the company for more than 15 years, and I really think that what we've built here is unique and special, because one of the special secret sauces is that we can truly, really ingest all of your observability data, metrics, traces, and logs, your metadata, your topology, your business events, your vulnerabilities. We're doing this on the one side with our agent that you just drop on your infrastructure, in your Kubernetes environments, on your serverless functions, wherever you have in your PaaS environment. But we also provide you the ability to ingest data through OpenTelemetry or through our APIs. We are actually one of the core contributors to OpenTelemetry, in case you have already gone down that path in leveraging this open source framework to instrument your application and your runtimes with telemetry, with logs, metrics, and traces. So we ingest all this data. We then store it, as I said, in Grail. Grail is something we purposely built to store all of the observability data in a single location and connecting it through the dependency model that we have, that we call Smartscape. So we know how logs, metrics, and traces and real user data all fits together, but we store it in a very optimized storage that we call Grail, in case this name ever comes across. All of this data then flows into our Davis AI, is analyzed with context. The context is given by Smartscape. Smartscape is the topology model that we automatically build up. So we know exactly which host talks with which other host, what is running on that host, how microservices are connected, and how your end users are navigating and executing transactions in your system. What else is there? We provide some core capabilities in the platform, as I mentioned earlier. A unified way to query the data through DQL, the Dynatrace query language, a unified way how we build use cases on top of Dynatrace through App Engine, and a unified way how to automate workflows based on data with Automation Engine. And this then really enables all these different use cases that we have, whether it's about you exploring your data, whether it's analyzing security problems, whether it's automation or any custom apps that you have. Now, the last piece here, I want to just zoom in and give you a little bit of an idea, because I think this is also in my 15 years at Dynatrace, this is something we really just recently added. Not only can we ingest data from left, from the agent, from OpenTelemetry, from Prometheus, from any data source, not only do we analyze it with our AI, but you can now also act on any type of data through our automation engine. And with this, as part of the platform, easily use your data to automate very key use cases for you, whether it's around reporting, it's around auto remediation, whether it's about notifying people about things that happen in your environment that Dynatrace is made aware of. And you can do this in a workflow way, in a visual workflow way, and you can connect all of the different tools that are part of your tool suite, part of your DevSecOps, part of your platform. All right, so Dynatrace truly, from my perspective, empowers every team to do more with data, whether it's from business development, security, and operations. We believe Dynatrace really has something for everyone to really make the day in your life easier and also help you and your organization to just become more efficient with the way you are delivering digital services to your end users. All right, but now really, how does Dynatrace really help you? And also, thanks you so much. Some people are already asking questions. So if you have questions and if you're live, use Q&A. I will answer them. I try to keep a look at it and answer them as I walk through some of my content. There will also be dedicated time in the end to walk through all the open questions. The first question is around how can we forward application logs to Dynatrace? I will cover this later on in a little bit, so I'll go into more details. But if you have questions in your life, please use Q&A. So how does Dynatrace help you? Whether you're an app owner in security, a DevOps, an SRE, a business analyst, a platform engineer, or an automation engineer. Again, a great place to start is actually our website. If you go to dynatrace.com, there's actually a really cool overview page where you can see what we actually do with the data that we collect and how we present that data to the different persona for the different use case. We'll explore all of this later, but a reminder again, if you're not yet on Dynatrace, sign up very easily to the Dynatrace trial. You can use that QR code. You can use that short link. It's the same thing. It gets you to the free trial page just with a special tracking code so that I actually know that you watched some of my content and then you signed up for it. What you get is when you are logging in to Dynatrace the first time, if you are a trial user, I want to just highlight a couple of things. You will have the ability to then explore live data, right? This is kind of how Dynatrace looks like. It either says good morning or good afternoon, depending obviously what time of the day it is. But what is new and what we just added and what I really highlight here is that everyone now has access to what we call the Discover Dynatrace tenant. As a trial user, you will actually see it with these areas that are highlighted here in green, explore live data. But every other user at Dynatrace as well, if you're already an existing customer, an existing user, an existing partner, you can also just access this tenant, even though the URL may not show up as prominent in your UI. You can just go to dt-url.net/discover, and that gets you to the same tenant. All right, a couple of things here, but you know what? Let's actually do this together. Let's discover our Dynatrace Playground tenant. That's the tenant that everybody has access to. I know I keep reminding or keep repeating myself, but if you don't have Dynatrace yet, sign up for a trial or go to the Discover Dynatrace tenant right away if you already have an environment, and keep bringing in those questions. So let me actually do this. So what you should see now in my environment, I just signed up with my personal email to a Dynatrace tenant. And when I log in, then this is what I see, right? So obviously what we want you to do is get data into Dynatrace. But really, before we go into all of this and also answering question that somebody asked earlier, how do you get logs in Dynatrace? Can Dynatrace accept SNMP alerts? How does this all work? This would all be about collecting data. I would first really show you what Dynatrace looks and feels like if you have the data in Dynatrace. And this is why I want to go to the Explore Live Demo link. And remember what I said earlier? If you are a trial user, you get this link in your UI. If you are an existing Dynatrace user, you can just go to that tenant yourself, and you can either use the dt-url.net/discover, that short link, or you can also just directly use this one here. But let me just put this into the chat. So the short link is the Discover short link that I sent earlier in the chat, and what I just sent now, this is the actual tenant URL that it forwards to. If you access it, you actually get a little notification that, hey, this is actually the Discover Dynatrace tenant. Now, let me give you a couple of quick tips and tricks on how to navigate and how you find your way around Dynatrace. The first thing I want to highlight, on the left side, you have your menu, right? Obviously, very easy. You can collapse it. I think in the beginning, it's always easier to have it expanded because you see what type of apps you have already pinned to your dock, or apps that you will then later see as we open up more apps in Dynatrace, the recently opened ones. Very important here is if you ever need support, if you ever need access to documentation, click on the support here. You have access to documentation, the community, university, also the Dynatrace developer forum, and the developer portal. This is for developers that want to build new capabilities on top of Dynatrace. All right. And you can also have the live chat. Good. What else do I have here? What I would like to show you is a little bit of navigation tips and tricks. In Dynatrace, everything is an app. So if you're on the left side, if you click on apps, right, you automatically see all of the apps that I have installed in my environment. But this is kind of like a default environment. These are the apps, and then you can also search for them, right? Very easily. So for instance, if I want to know my hosts, I can just search for host, and then I can open up the host app. An app in Dynatrace is basically the window to your data optimized on a particular use case. That means in this case, I should be able to see all of the different hosts that I'm monitoring. Now remember, this is a demo environment, or let's say a playground environment. Thank you to the team at Dynatrace that is maintaining it. As you can see here, there are 3 hosts that are part actually of an EKS cluster in AWS, and there's another machine running on GCE, which is used to actually create some load on the demo applications that run on these Kubernetes clusters. But from a host perspective, right, this is one way of viewing the data. So I can also, just to show a little bit more, I'll just pick one of these hosts. Let's say the third one here in my list. Dynatrace has purposely built views or apps, right, as we call them, that actually give me some insights into what is happening in this particular host and this particular environment. Now, this would be a use case if I'm the owner or responsible for this particular environment for these Kubernetes nodes, and I might be interested in seeing all the data. Most of the Dynatrace views, as you can see here, are very interactive. Also on the top right, most of these views have an option, a time frame selector. So I can, for instance, go to last 24 hours and I can see how things are going. Now, what you also see is there are different ways to navigate. But I think, I mean, most of you have probably navigated through different software solutions. But just to let you know, you can obviously, scroll down to see what is running on this particular host, what is happening on the disk. You can also click down and zoom down and figure out what type of events are happening. So Dynatrace automatically detects events that happen on the host, whether it's process restarts, updates, and so on. Also, somebody earlier asked the question, how can we forward logs to Dynatrace? If you install, and this is what I have here, this is a Kubernetes cluster node. We have multiple ways to monitor Kubernetes. One of the ways is to install the one agent as an operator. And from this point on, we automatically get all of your logs that are created by your applications that run on Kubernetes. The same would be true if you install the one agent on a Linux machine, on a Windows machine. We automatically collect all the logs for you. Now, and other options that we have, you can stream the logs to us if you're using, different logging frameworks, whether it's logd, just like FluentBit, FluentD, all of these are log tools. Also, if you're using OpenTelemetry, you can just stream the data to Dynatrace, right? But by default, this is just the one agent. The one agent gives me all information to everything that I have here, including the logs even on a host level, but we'll later see we also have the logs in context of your processes and your services and even your end users. I want to show you now a different way to quickly navigate around. So this was hosts. For me, a really nice way to navigate and find the data that I need for my use case is the search feature. You can see it here, I could either click on search or I can press Control K. Control K opens up the search, right? So what I could do now, I could, for instance, search for services. That would be one option. And then what comes up is a suggestion on apps that have to do with services. And also, right, if this is not what I'm looking for, it automatically gives me your search capabilities in our community, online, and so on and so forth. So I could click on services here and then automatically then get brought over to the service screen. That would be one option. Another option is, and this is was just introduced with the latest update. If you have a lot of different categories of things that the Dynatrace monitors. If you are starting with the greater sign, I think that's what it's called, you can also then search for categories, right? So for instance, again, I can search for service as a category. Here we go. And now I can search within that category. One of the apps that I have is Easy Travel. There's also, I think, another one that's called Easy Trade. As you can see here, though, I have easy access to all of the services that Dynatrace is currently monitoring that have easy trade or easy travel or anything in their name. Right? Hopefully this makes it easy for you. Easy. I am actually searching for one more thing here. I want to search for, I think there's one component here that's called the ad service. The ad service, I want to search for that. Like there's two here, and I can easily click on the hipster shop. That's another application that is part of my environment. And I can directly now go into that service screen. So if I am a developer, or if I'm a site reliability engineer, if I'm somebody that is interested in how do I easily get access to all the data that Dynatrace has about the ad service, Control K, the check the greater sign for type service, and then just the name, and then you're directly in that screen. And that screen, again, you see everything that is needed. All of your service metrics, your site reliability engineer metrics, response time, failure rate, throughput, and so on and so forth. All of your distributed traces, everything in one view. All the events you log. Somebody earlier was asking, why Dynatrace over New Relic, Datadog, and Splunk, and etc. Well, I think first of all, I mean, the decision is up to you, but what you see here is that we are a solution that gives you all the data, not only in context, because I'm here and I see all the events, all the logs, all the traces, all the metrics, but we put this into a single optimized data store that we call Grail, that is very efficient from the way we access the data, but also very cost efficient. And we can ingest this data either through our agent, but we also ingest the data from any type of open standards, whether it's OpenTelemetry, Prometheus. Somebody was mentioning SNMP earlier. We do have extensions for SNMP as well. We have about 650 different extensions on how you can ingest data and kind of connect Dynatrace with other systems. And it's all very intuitive and all very use case driven in the Dynatrace UI. All right, so these were a couple of navigation tips. Maybe the last thing I want to show you, because people typically ask, okay, this is great, I see services. Earlier you showed me hosts, but what else is there? There are, as you can see here in the different views, different options to navigate through more data. One of the things, and that's also one of our, I think, secret sauces, coming back to the question on what does Dynatrace do different than other tools. What we do out of the box as we are ingesting data, we are keeping a live model, a live dependency model of everything we see, every single piece of data that our agent collects, but also data that you send to us by log streaming, OpenTelemetry, Prometheus, SNMP, whatever it is. And Smartscape, this is really where it all comes together. Smartscape is our dependency model. Now here, I open up Smartscape from my service view. Remember, I was at the service, the ad service. So what Smartscape shows me here is, where does my ad service actually run? My ad service runs distributed across multiple processes, in this case, containers and pods running across multiple hosts. These are my Kubernetes nodes running in multiple different availability zones, because the way I set up my Kubernetes cluster is that it runs, the nodes run across availability zones. So I see on the left side here, the vertical dependency, and on the right side here, this is what I call the horizontal dependency. Who is depending on this particular service? Who is making calls to that service, or who else is making calls to that service, right? In and outgoing connections. So it's a big web, kind of, if you think about it, that really shows all the dependencies. And I can either focus on individual, what we call monitored entities, services, processes, hosts, data centers, or applications. I can also get a total overview of everything, right? So these are my 82 services that I'm monitoring here. I can always click on one of these and I can see where does it run. And right, like for instance, the database here, that's a database service. This is a .NET application. They're running on different environments. Okay, also hosts, remember we have these 4 hosts. We also automatically know how they are connected, because we know the applications that run on it, what type of connections they have, because they're making active calls. So this just to give you a little bit of a background information. All right, let's go now back to kind of quickly seeing that I really keep track of everything. So step number 1, let's discover a little bit the playground. The playground environment gives you, every one of you, the chance to explore the same data that I just explored. It's a public environment that every Dynatrace user that has a SaaS account can access. And if you don't yet have a SaaS account, just sign up for it. Somebody else is asking, is this the new portal? Is this available for the GCC users? This is the new Dynatrace UI, the new Dynatrace platform, the new Dynatrace SaaS platform that I'm showing you exactly. All right, so step number 2, I want to explore with you the magic of the Dynatrace Davis AI. And I want to do this together with you. So what I've created, again, going back, the QR code here, let me just reshare that link and also actually show it to you. So if you do me the favor, I have created a public Git repository, right? That's under Dynatrace Perf Clinics, Dynatrace Getting Started. Let me just send that link again in the chat. So this is the tutorial that I'm using today, right? We are in the how-to section. As you can see here, again, step 1, getting a Dynatrace trial if you don't have it. Discover the Dynatrace Playground. That's the same link I gave you earlier. I also have a couple of links to dashboards and notebooks prepared for you. So once you have access to Dynatrace, if you have a SaaS account and if you have access to the playground, you can click on all of these links. And this is all content that I've created on that same tenant and shared with you. So you can click on it. Just to quickly walk through a couple of other things I have here. I just have useful links to apps that I find personally very useful, whether it's the problem app, the Kubernetes apps, the SLO app, service, and so on. These are just direct links that go and open up these apps in that particular tenant we're using today. Now, after we are done with exploring the tenant, obviously at some point you want to ingest your own data in case you're just getting started with Dynatrace. So this is why I also have a step in here, ingesting data into your own tenant, pointing and linking to things like installing the one agent, how does this work in Kubernetes, how to ingest open telemetry, how to ingest external logs. Somebody was asking earlier about external logs, how to monitor your AWS, Google Cloud Platform, Azure, Heroku, and all these platforms. We have integrations with them, and also how you can enable these 600+ extensions. Somebody earlier asked about SNMP. It's all here, right? Good. I want to just follow my own script a little bit, and please keep asking the questions. I hope those of you that have asked questions earlier already, I answered most of them. On the logs, we have no limits on the size. You can ingest gigabytes and terabytes and petabytes of logs. That's not a problem at all. SNMP, I answered that. Again, Dynatrace over our competition. See it for yourself, experience it for yourself. You then the judge on whether you think Dynatrace help you. My personal opinion, you probably know, because otherwise I wouldn't be here for more than 15 years at Dynatrace and still being an advocate. And yes, this is the new Dynatrace platform experience, the new UI that we have for our Dynatrace SaaS customers. All right. So what did I want to do in my next step? Let's explore the magic of Dynatrace. Earlier, we've explored some of the data, but for me, the real magic comes in, especially if I am now putting my head on as somebody that is responsible for a platform, for applications, somebody that's on call in case something happens. I don't want to look into all of this data myself because it's too much data. And so this is where our Davis AI comes in, because it helps me detecting problem and also telling me the root cause. And so what I would like you to do is, if you one of the notebooks that I have here is called the How Do I Work with Davis Detected Problems. Now this is the QR code that I had earlier, but I also sent that link now in the chat for those of you that are live, so it's easier for you to access. If you click on that link, and I'm also just opening up that link here in a new tab, or just in this one here, I'm just opening it here. That's the link. what it does, it reminds me, or every time you reload that page, it reminds you, hey, this is the Discover Dynatrace tenant. So you have read-only access to this, or most of it is read-only. And you know, it's the same tenant that we've been working on. Now, this is now a so-called notebook that I've created. Notebooks in Dynatrace are a really great way to actually explore data, to execute queries against your logs, your metrics, your traces, to share with others. I personally find it also really useful to create tutorials and how-to guides. And that's actually why I created, as you can see here, a list of how-to guides that I have opened here already. And all of these links to all of these how-tos are on that Git repository. So just open up these links and they will show up in your Notebook app. So Notebook app is one of the core apps of Dynatrace. What this use case here, what I try to show you is how you can actually work with what I think is one of the key things in Dynatrace is our Davis AI, working with Davis when Davis detects problems in case something is not working correctly, if there are anomalies. So there's every single step that I will share with you today is also explained here in screenshots. Okay, everything should be documented, but I really want to quickly walk with you through this live. So it starts with opening up the Problems app. You can either click on that link because I linked it, or if you remember the magic, what I showed you earlier, Control K is the search. I can just search for problems because there is a Problems app in Dynatrace. Also, it gives me a link to the notebook because the search will search through apps and notebooks and dashboards. And if they come up with that name, then it comes up. But I want to open up the Problems app. So what the Problems app actually does, it shows me all the problems that Dynatrace has detected. Well, it's a small environment, no problems in the last 2 hours. That's great, but I'm going back to 72 hours because I've been playing around a little bit with this. And you can see here over the last 72 hours, a couple of things happened in my environment. When Dynatrace detects an anomaly, it always automatically detects what's the severity. I want to now focus not on availability, I want to focus on errors because I want to show you one particular use case I know that exists here. I can also talk about the impact level, right? I could, for instance, say application. So that means Dynatrace Davis, show me all the problems that you've detected in the last 72 hours that were causing errors on applications. And as you can see here, there's like 3 errors that happen kind of on a scheduled basis every day at 8 o'clock at night. There's something that happened on August 8th where we just made some changes to the app. And therefore, this is not the perfect use case, but let me focus on the one, let's say, from August 7th. So if you're following this, you should be able to do this as well. If you're watching this at a much later stage, just do me a favor, search for one of these JavaScript errors on the Hipster Shop logs. We have 2 affected entities. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So what Dynatrace did here, it told me that there is a problem. There was a problem. It's been fortunately closed. Now, when problems open up in Dynatrace, of course, I can explore them like I do now, but much better, I can also connect this with a workflow. I can automatically create a ServiceNow ticket, a Jira ticket. I can send a Slack message. I can send an email. I can also send it to the right people because Dynatrace not only knows what the problem is, but we also have a lot of metadata about who owns that application, who is responsible for the root causing component. And we can then send the information to those teams that are actually responsible and that should take action. Right? That's also possible with our workflows, with our automation, where we can automate based on data we have. But what I would like to show you here is what I really love. So I see that we had a JavaScript error rate increase. We know because Dynatrace automatically also does end user monitoring for me. That's maybe another thing that other competing tools don't do. We automatically monitor our end users every click, every swipe in the mobile app or in the web app. We even have what's called session replay, so you can actually visually replay what people did that experienced the problem. I also see which application was impacted. We had a high Java rate increase, JavaScript error rate increase. These were JavaScript errors people were receiving. But what's really cool now is that Dynatrace, if I go over to the root cause section, it first of all tells me the root cause is the ads service that runs on the EKS Kubernetes cluster in the namespace production, in the service workload ad service, and also in the workload ad service. It additionally tells me that Dynatrace detected a configuration change event that seems to be the root cause. We automatically detect configuration changes in your infrastructure and also on Kubernetes. So it seems somebody was making a feature flag change. Somebody put the expanded ads feature flag, it changed it from disabled to enabled. So enable that feature flag. We also highlight some additional anomalies on other metrics we've observed, like client response time and server failure rate, where it increasing dramatically. We had a 97% increase of server-side failures because this feature flag was turned on. Everything automatically discovered. And now what I can do from here, I can just click on that offending or on that root cause service. I don't need to look for it myself. Dynatrace already tells me where I need to click to. I don't need to be smart enough to figure out what questions to ask because Davis figured this out for me. This is a great thing about an AI as compared to an AI that is just an assistant if I ask it the right questions. Here, I don't need to ask the right questions because the data is already there, so I can act upon it. All right, so what do I see here? I'm back at the ad service. I'm focused on the problem that happened. I can see the huge failure rate increase that happened at this time frame. I can scroll down here. I can see that my ad service is depending on a front-end component that has incoming calls. I can see my distributed traces. I can scroll further down where we can see the events that Dynatrace automatically detected. Let me just close the sidebar here to give you this a little bit more space. Right, the feature flag change, the failure rate increase, these are all events that Dynatrace automatically detects, and it is automatically then including this in the root cause analysis. So this is exactly where I see the feature flag being changed. This is also where you would integrate Dynatrace in your CI/CD. You would automatically see who deployed which change from let's say Argo or Flux if you use these tools for deployments, or if you're using Jenkins for deployments. I also see all the logs, and I can see here that at this time frame there were a huge number of error logs. So what I can do now, I can easily say, hey, you know what? I'm actually just interested in the error logs because that seems to be an easy indicator. Filter it down here. So again, I don't need to go to an external tool like Elastic or any other tool to now get my logs. I already get the logs that were captured by Dynatrace from that component in that time frame when an error happened. I can see get ads failed with a null pointer exception. And more than that, and this is again the next magical thing, I get two links here. Show me the end user, show me the one end user that had a problem that ran into this issue, or show me that trace. Let me click on that trace now. That means Dynatrace automatically shows me now the end-to-end distributed trace that we've either captured through OpenTelemetry or that we have captured through our one agent. So this is now the end-to-end trace starting from the top of your application chain of your architecture. This was seems like, I think it's the Nginx logo. So I can see this here, right? If I click on it, this runs also on my Kubernetes cluster, but I can see the request that is coming in, all the details. And I can see then a nice waterfall chart like a distributed trace should look like. It actually made calls to Lambda going into OpenTelemetry. So there's a lot of things that we can actually see. And then eventually that transaction was calling my get ads function that is also highlighted here with red, because this is the one that was causing the error. And if I click on that function, I can see how this function was called with all the parameters that came in. I can also look at, remember my logs. I see all the logs that were created by that transaction. I can see errors because Dynatrace additionally detects things like when exceptions are thrown that are thrown outside of the application. Everything is here. And now I know some people have asked, how is this different to our competition? Well, maybe judge yourself. You see this now. By the way, also, yes, the session is recorded. The session is recorded and will be available both as an on-demand view with the same link that you used to register, and you also will see it on YouTube and on Dynatrace University. Right? So this is really, I think, really great. Also, code level visibility. Maybe one thing that I would like to show you here, because we talked about the end user session. So I just showed you an end-to-end trace, which is great for developers to figure out where in their code execution things actually failed. Why was there null pointer exception? But I can also say a few user session, which means I now get to see the the end user's perspective, right? Because one of the things Dynatrace also does, it can capture, if you want to, your end user. I can see now, this was a user that came in with a Windows 10 with a Chrome 101 from this particular ISP. And I can see what this user did, loading that page, loading another page, loading cart. And this is then where loading cart in the browser actually then ran into this issue, I guess, right? So this is really kind of showing you as well how Dynatrace does not only monitoring of your backend, but also connecting everything from frontend to backend. Right? All right, so this was my, going back to my notebooks now, this was kind of like my first use case, how to work with Davis detected problems. Do me a favor, look into this. I think it's a really, I probably missed one or two things, but so many amazing things that we can do with this. Yeah. All right, let me go back to my step number 2. Step number 3, let's analyze some Kubernetes workloads together. I know many have, when I announced that I'm doing this webinar, many have said, hey, can you also focus a little bit on Kubernetes because we're moving to Kubernetes. What does Dynatrace do for Kubernetes? So let me just show you. And same as before, you can either scan that QR code, or let me just do this. On that same Git repository, I also have the how to analyze Kubernetes workloads. That's the one. I'm sending it in the chat for everyone that is live. And I will also take that same link in my browser and just open it up here. Right. Again, I'm reminded this is my discovery tenant. That's all great. But in this tutorial, in this how-to, I really just wanted to highlight a couple of things. There are ways, we have some out-of-the-box apps to get an overview of your Kubernetes clusters. There's the Kubernetes app. So I have a couple of screenshots here where on Kubernetes itself, we highlight, again, events. Also, we do security scanning, security vulnerabilities, third-party vulnerabilities, and code-level vulnerabilities of everything that runs on your cluster. This works also through our AppSec feature, another thing that I'm not sure if every vendor out there has out of the box with our capabilities. We have some dashboards that give you a broad overview. Now, our clusters here, granted, are not that big, but you get a feeling of what's possible. Some dashboards in our classical view, and also some dashboards in our new UI here. What I really want to show you is the accessing logs, traces, metrics of a particular Kubernetes workload. There's different ways to get there. I think I showed you earlier with the search. Remember Control K? I could use the bigger sign and say workload. There should then be a Kubernetes workload, and then I call it add service. And then I get from here to there, and then it asks me, how do you want to open it? This is also a capability. When you open up a screen, when you find an entity, there might be multiple apps that can view this or display or have a use case for it, especially if you are, let's say, a partner or a Dynatrace user that wants to build your own apps, your own UIs on top of Dynatrace. You can then also register so-called intent to open up and provide capabilities for a particular entity. Now this here, right, if I go again to my 72 hours like we had earlier, this is a great way, an easy way to get access to all of my data here that I have on this particular workload. Very easy to find my workload. Now, if I go a step back, you have a little breadcrumb navigation here. If I go back to my cluster, right? So this would be the cluster overview. Cluster overview gives me a high-level overview of everything that I have. I have on the top right here some links to dashboards that I can open. One thing that I like is actually if I say, let's say, view all workloads, that's kind of an overview now, similar to the search from earlier, but I can really filter on workloads. I know if you're on Kubernetes, I assume you have labels and annotations. Let's say on workloads, you have some labels, right? So you can say, I want to see all the workloads that have a particular, that are deployed by a particular Helm chart, that have a particular name on it. So you can do all of this, right? And I'm just using, again, my add service here. I'm just saying, hey, Dynatrace, give me all the workloads that have the add service label the app Kubernetes IO name on it. And then I see it as one workload, and this is the service behind the scenes, and so on and so forth. Right? Last thing I want to show you, let me just actually let me click to the ad service again, which I think is also really, really great. Vulnerabilities, very important, right? We automatically have our application security feature enabled by installing the agent. And then we automatically detect your third-party vulnerabilities and also code level vulnerabilities. Fortunately, this one doesn't have any known vulnerabilities in there, but we have code level third-party vulnerabilities, meaning this component is loading some third-party components that have known issues, and we can act upon them. Another thing I want to highlight here, if I scroll a little further down to my Kubernetes services and also to my my service part here, where we are visualizing and giving you access to the actual transactions that are executed, your traces, your logs for that code. We've been here before, but I want to just highlight a couple of things. Very important, SLOs. You can define SLOs, service level objectives, for all of your components, whether it's an application, a service, also infrastructure. And they would then also show up in the context here. So you can see that as my system had like some high error rates, my SLOs were impacted. That's one thing, right? Direct access to SLOs. Another thing that is really nice is owners. You can also specify ownership. Dynatrace can extract ownership information from the metadata that we detect on a host, on a process, on a Kubernetes workload, or on a pod by looking at particular labels and annotations or environment variables. And we can then assign a team ownership to a component. This is great because we can show the team ownership here in the UI, but we can then also use this for workflows. When we say there is a problem and we want to send a notification out, then we can send a targeted notification to that team that owns this component. Like in this case, we could send it to ninjas or to the help ninja. Obviously, there's some fake contacts here, but for now, for our demo purposes, I hope this makes sense. Okay. One last thing I want to show you here. If you're doing some exploratory analysis, then you can also select timeframes like this here, right? You want to, for instance, say what's happening here, and then you can kick off the era, or you can actually ask the Davis on-demand analyzer. You can say, Davis, hey AI, I want to know what is contributing to that failure rate. So now Davis is actually walking up and down the dependency stack, what we call Smartscape, if you remember, and looks at all of the different metrics and signals to see what else is contributing, what is correlating the most. And you can see here, this is the list of connected systems, and kind of it tells me that, for instance, the total processing time of the service is correlating the most. So this is a great way to do root cause diagnostics in an exploratory way. Good. Let me make sure that I don't forget anything. Step number 3, step number 4, security. Very quickly on security, because I think this is a big topic. We all should feel responsible for building secure applications and keeping our systems secure. So one of the use cases that I have here is how to do application security with Dynatrace. Let me copy that link. Let me put this into the chat for everyone. And let me also open up the same link in my Dynatrace environment. Yes, it's the playground, I know. So in this use case, I really highlight all of the security use, or most of the security use cases that we have. Analyzing third-party vulnerabilities, that's one. Analyzing code level vulnerabilities, and also analyzing attacks. So these are 3 major use cases that we have on the application security side right now. There's obviously more you can do, especially when analyzing logs around SIEM. You can detect any suspicious behavior, and more obviously is there to come. But this how-to at least covers, I think, a big broad range of it. Now, again, how do you find security-related use cases? Type security, and I think the best place to start is the security overview, because the security overview gives you, as the name implies, an overview of Dynatrace detected vulnerabilities. So Dynatrace detected as one critical third-party vulnerability. I can click on it, and then it gets me some details about what this is all about. It also gives me, we have the Davis Security Advisor, which is really great. It actually tells me what type of issues I have in my systems and how I can fix them and how many problems this would actually solve by, for instance, upgrading to a different VM here that I have. Right? And that's actually the sandbox escape here. This is one of the vulnerabilities I have in my system. It is marked as critical because it seems we're using a sandbox somewhere that has a known vulnerability. Now, the interesting thing here is if I click on that, Dynatrace is doing our own security assessment. That means we are taking the security assessment of the National Security Database, right? So if I scroll down here, for instance, the CVSS score is 9.99, so this is highly critical. But because Dynatrace knows that this component is not exposed to the internet, so no impact because it's not exposed to the internet, and this component also doesn't have any access to any data, it's still critical, but we are lowering the score, which really allows you to then focus on the security issues that really matter. Right? So we give you that scoring. But just so you know how we get to that score, because we do not only know that there is vulnerable code running, but we also know if that vulnerable code is actually accessible from the outside or it has access to any vulnerable data. Because we do end-to-end tracing, we have the dependency model, and we know much more about the system than if you would just have a siloed view of your environment. So that's a really cool use case. And then the other one, just showing you the attack, is also a really nice app here. So this is all about active attacks on your environment. We give you an overview of where attacks are coming in from that are trying to exploit SQL injections, command line injections, and so on. Right, so you can see it here: SQL injection, command injection, JNDI injection. We can see this now. Don't be worried. These attacks here are not real. I mean, they are real, but they are all simulated from our demo environment. But this is what we would detect in case there would be a real threat, and then we could then go in, we could analyze the threat itself, and if you're an admin, you could even block that attack. Blocking means you could actually block active code execution that are trying to leverage this vulnerability. All right, so I wanted to make sure we are not missing anything. Let's see what else. Last step that I have here is some business metrics. One of the dashboards, I think I need to now share the dashboard with you. So on that Git repository, there's the Easy Trade dashboard. Let me copy that link. Let me copy this into the chat feature here. Here we go. Should be able to access it, and I will also open it up. And this dashboard, so one of the apps that runs in the background that is monitored is called Easy Trade. It's a trading platform where you can it's a trading platform where you can trade stocks and everything, right? And so one of the things that this app is doing, it's emitting trades, and we are capturing these trades either through our instrumentation. We can also capture it on logs, and we can also capture it in the real user browser. But one of the things we're doing here, we are visualizing this data in a view that makes sense to the business owners, right? How many buys, how many sells, most recent trades, do you meet your SLAs? So this is really, truly awesome because you can also see that we're not only looking at technical sides of the house, not only at end users, not only at security, but also at the business. And there's much more to dashboards than I can show in the next couple of minutes. But see it for yourself, play around with it. If you want to see what's happening behind the scenes, right? This is a read-only dashboard for you, but I believe you should be able to make a copy of it, and then you also get to see the queries behind the scenes. Dashboards and notebooks not only allow you to visualize data that Dynatrace already has, it also allows you to pull in data on demand from external data sources. Somebody was asking earlier, Can we access Elasticsearch directly? We can even access external data and external data sources and bring it in as part of a dashboard. How is this possible? Because we also allow you to execute and define JavaScript here. Right? We also allow you to do many things, not only accessing data in Dynatrace, but also external data, and then combine it so that your use case can be fulfilled. Good. As I'm here, I want to just show you one more thing. Workflows. Workflows, I mentioned about this. There is a key capability of Dynatrace is really having the ability to drive automation based on data, based on events. You can trigger so-called workflows in Dynatrace. You can also create some. I think you cannot store it on this environment, but if you have your own Dynatrace environment, then you can just create a workflow. But a couple of those that are interesting here, I really like this one, cards reliability validation. This shows it really nicely. This is a workflow that triggers every time Dynatrace detects a new deployment in production of the cards component. It is then running an evaluation of that new deployment using our so-called Site Reliability Guardian, which is an app on top of Dynatrace that we built, but it also shows you the power that you can also build your own apps and then use it even in a workflow. Then it's traversing Smartscape because you can also execute JavaScript in a workflow to pull in data from Dynatrace, to pull in external data as part of a workflow, and then getting ownership information about the components that were just evaluated. Remember the ownership feature, the team feature that I had earlier? And then you could even say, give me the contact details and then send a Slack message or send an email as one of the next steps here, right? So this is all possible in workflows. And what I am discarding the changes here because I think I'm not allowed to do this anyway. What I would like to highlight, play around with this. There's a lot of great details in here. There's many more use cases that you have available in that Git repository. I will use this Git repository and extend it over the next couple of weeks because there's so many more things that I haven't been able to cover. The most important thing for me is explore, but then also start your own Dynatrace journey. In your own Dynatrace tenant, you should start to get data into Dynatrace. Get data from your logs, your Kubernetes cluster, your OpenTelemetry, your machines, install the one agent, or just follow the getting data into Dynatrace wizards. Then observe and explore the data through the built-in apps. We've seen most of these apps today already. Just explore them and see what Dynatrace does out of the box for you. You can then also leverage the Dynatrace Hypermodal AI, Davis, where we can automatically show you if there are problems. You will also have the capability to do predictions. You can do predictive analytics. You can do predictive operations, predictive automation. And talking about automation, you can build workflows that are much more complex to what I've shown you, integrating it with Jira, with ServiceNow, with Slack, with all of these different tools that we have out there. And the last point is you can extend Dynatrace with your own use cases. You can build your own apps. Go to developer.dynatrace.com and start building your own apps on top of Dynatrace. All right, with this, I know I tried to answer most of the questions already, and we'll see what other questions are still coming in. First of all, I want to thank you for everyone that stayed that long. It's been an hour almost. Let me see. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature if you're live, and if you're not live, as I said, go to either community.dynatrace.com, use the live chat in the product, or just find me, and I'm pretty sure we can have an exchange. Recording of the session, yes. Being a managed user, I'm not able to use the functionality of Grail. What are better alternatives? Correct. If you're a managed user, you're not able to use the capabilities of Grail. But as a managed user, I would say 80% of the capabilities I've shown today are also available on managed, right? I showed Kubernetes, I showed the problem detection, I showed SLOs, I showed ownership feature. These are all capabilities that are also available on managed. But on the SaaS side, right, the workflows, the new dashboards, the new notebooks, this is a SaaS only capability. But the rest I've shown is also available on-premise, even though maybe the UI obviously looks slightly different, but this most of it should be possible. But hopefully this also gives you some ideas on what's available in SaaS, and you know, maybe you want to at some point consider SaaS as an option for you. Next question, can we access Elasticsearch DB directly that is being used by Dynatrace for USQL? For USQL, no. So this is for the gen for the not for Grail, but for USQL, you cannot access Elasticsearch directly. You can only access the USQL data through USQL. But for what will happen is end user data will also be available in Grail in the very near future. So you can then access all the data through the common query language. The question is, what are the prerequisites that enable Grail on my SaaS tenant? I think that we've rolled out now the new platform on, I think we're rolling it out on different regions, geographical regions, and then also because we run SaaS on AWS and Azure and GCP. I think there's actually a rollout plan exactly first which regions we're rolling it out and for which hyperscaler platform. So Yannick, for you, I think I don't know it by heart. I think we've started with AWS to go globally first, and then with the other vendors like Azure and GCP for the detailed release timeframe for every one of those. I don't know by heart, but if you're signing up for a new trial, they're all Grail enabled by default. That's so if you want to already play around with it, and if you don't see it right now in your SaaS tenant, then do me a favor, just reach out in the chat to the product team in the in-product chat and just ask them. Yeah. Next question is, can we use Dynatrace tool to monitor our services, servers, and databases? Yes. So what you can do, right? Maybe I didn't do a good enough job to demo everything today. So you mentioned databases, right? I search for database, and then we have an app that is called Database Services. And there I get a view of all the databases that we're currently monitoring. And there's different ways of how Dynatrace can monitor a database. By default, we monitor it from the lens of an application that is accessing the database. But we can also monitor the database from the database itself, meaning by pulling in data from the database metrics it exposes. We have extensions and we have options to monitor Oracle, SQL Server, and so on. But this would be for databases, servers anyway, right? If I search for hosts, this is how I started today. On the host side, we by default monitor all of your hosts, all of the processes, all of the network connections, all of your logs. From a host to host perspective, we automatically do your alerting, your SLOs, your vulnerabilities. All of this is there. All right. Good. Is Dynatrace used for code editors for front-end applications? Used for code editors. Not sure if, so what we also do is front-end. One of the things I've shown in the very beginning, or in one of my demos, there is an option for if you do web, right? We do front-end monitoring as well. That means we monitor your front-end performance, your how your users are interacting with your applications, and we therefore just go in here, right? This is the front-end overview. So how many users do you have on this system? What browsers do they use? What type of performance do they have? And then what's really nice to give you this analyze user session, I think this may go into the direction of your question. So we can capture every single user that is using your front-end applications. And what you can see here are the individual sessions. That means I can really see every single user, what they've done, what they've clicked through. Now, it seems the user on my trial here doesn't have the access rights for what we call session replay, but I can quickly show you this in your real environment, like in your Dynatrace environment. If I open up that same thing here, let me just go in. You can even see what we call session replay, which means you actually get to see a visual representation of how these users were actually User query language, session segmentation. This is the one that I'm interested in. Let me just quickly show you that. This is what we call session replay technology. So with this use, I have a little bit more access rights. Right? You can see here the play button. So what I will be able to see now is actually session replay. As you can see here, we actually visualize, we're showing you what the user saw. Now, this setup here was configured in a way that we're not capturing any sensitive information, any confidential information, but you would get a full replay of what the user clicked, how they moved around. So this is definitely a great also opportunity for front-end developers to see what is happening. And remember the waterfall, I showed this in one of my demos earlier. For every single user interaction, we can capture the full waterfall, like what happens really in the browser as the user navigates to these pages, which images are downloaded. We give you recommendations on how to optimize performance, and we also give you then the end-to-end trace. So from the front end of loading that page back to the backend trace, which means that's the end-to-end trace of when this user clicked on this particular link, for instance. All right. Good. I am over time, and I see that some people already had to drop. Thank you so much. Again, if there's more questions, you know where to find me. And make sure, please, that if I go back to slide number 1, do me a favor to get started. Sign up for the trial if you don't have one yet. Use that bit.ly link. And also do me a favor and go to dturl.net/discover to access the same environment that I've just shown you. Recording will be up soon, and yeah, explore and build better apps and build secure apps, and hopefully Dynatrace helps you in that job. Okay, thank you so much. Bye bye. Thank you also for all the nice words here. Thank you, Jane.